Hi, I'm Barry Finkelstein, UUA Congregational Stewardship Services consultant.
And I'm Mark Ewert. I'm also a Congregational Stewardship Services consultant. And we're talking today about Fourth, which is a stewardship development program. I'm asking Barry specifically some questions about the stewardship ministry team, which is one of the first things that you're going to want to start with when you initiate a Fourth program. So tell me a little bit about the charge of the stewardship ministry team, Barry.
Okay, Mark. The team is charged with helping the congregation take what I call a long-term, deep, and strategic view of stewardship in the congregation. And by all that, I mean that they need to look at stewardship in the broadest sense, which is how does the congregation use all of the resources available to it, talent, time, money, skills, energy. How do we use all those resources to further the life-affirming mission of the congregation and to do this over the long term?
And so who do you want to serve on this team? What kind of skills and knowledge base do you want them to have?
Yeah, I think that's really important to think about because I see this as quite different from much of the rest of the work of the congregations. So number one, I think you need a mix of people. It's not just money people. Sometimes congregations think we're talking only money people here. That's not really the case. I think you need some people who are big picture thinkers, people who have the patience to work on this for the long term because we're looking at culture change, which takes some time. So you need some people with patience. And perhaps most important, you need people who have credibility with the rest of the congregants, with the leaders and with the lay members and with the professional staff as well.
Mm-hmm. And many congregations have a volunteer pool that they pull from to get people to serve on committees. And so I'm wondering what you might recommend as far as recruiting people for this team specifically. Make sure you get the right people.
Yeah, that's a good question, making sure you get the right people. And I know many congregations are concerned that they're tapped out, that it's very hard to get volunteers. So I think the key here is to make a very direct appeal to the people you think are the right people. Don't rely on mass appeals or emails or announcements and Sunday mornings, but really figure out why might you want someone to serve on this? What attributes do they bring to this? And ask them directly. I think that's the best way to do this. And I think most congregations can find the right people and get them excited about doing this.
Mm-hmm. And some of the congregations that I work with actually call their annual budget drive team or their pledge team or their canvas team the stewardship team. So what's the difference between an annual budget drive team and a stewardship team?
Yeah, that's a great question because I see that's potential for confusion as well. I think the difference is simple. The annual budget drive team is a task-driven, time-limited activity where you might take 6 months or 9 months to run a campaign to raise funds for the operating budget for the congregation. This is completely different from that. This is looking much longer term about how we see ourselves as a congregation, how we see ourselves about money and resources and time and talent. It's a different picture entirely, although the two are related.
So you've got this group of leaders in stewardship, and they're clearly going to spend some time learning about stewardship. How do they spread that to other parts of the congregation so other leaders are engaged in stewardship as well?
Yeah, I think there's three things. I do think an important part of the charge is bringing all the rest of the leaders along, because that's the only way this is going to be successful. So I think there's three important things. One is education. I think they need to offer lots of educational opportunities and make sure that committee chairs and even professional staff attend and are included. The second is, I think, communication and coordination, making sure everyone knows what's going on and publicizing things. I think that's very important. And third, and maybe equally important, is clarifying expectations. So what does it mean to be a leader in this congregation from the standpoint of stewardship and generosity? Mm-hmm. I think too often we're not clear about that, and the stewardship team can help make that more clear.
So speaking of that very topic, so how do we actually know that this group is being successful? What kinds of measurables, what kinds of things can we look to say, yes, we're moving forward in this direction?
Yeah, I think measures are very important, and I think they're congregation specific in the sense that the first thing that the team ought to do is take a look at where we are today and where we would like to get to, and then what measures will show progress along the way. Now, even though I think that's congregation specific, let me give you a couple of examples that might work. The first is I think it's important to measure annual giving and to measure that over time and look at a few things. Look at participation in the annual budget drive, what percentage of your pledging households are actually making a financial commitment. Also looking at what percentage are making a fair share commitment according to the guidelines that you have in your congregation. The second is it's important to look at participation in the events that the stewardship team puts forth. So if we make opportunities available to you for education or for seminars, how many people show up? That's really important. Mm-hmm. And then third, and maybe less tangible than the others, but perhaps more important, is looking overall at the spirit of generosity in the congregation and figuring out if that's growing and deepening. And some ways to look at that are how generous are we as a congregation with outside groups, or how generous are we through our social justice programs? Because I find there's a great correlation between organizations that are generous and people within being generous.
Mm-hmm. Well, great. That was a wonderful snapshot of the stewardship ministry team itself. Thanks, Barry.
You're welcome. Thank you, Mark.